All right, so welcome, y'all. We are getting ready to start our garden. It is April, and I know that some folks have started their garden, which is great. Um, we are going to talk about what to do throughout the season in our garden. We're going to talk about the collaboration between Greentown Grows and Contemporary Farmer Inc. And hopefully by the end of these slides and presentation, we'll learn something new of what to do in our garden. Um, so this is a little bit about Contemporary Farmer. My name is David, founder and president of Contemporary Farmer Inc. In 2019, we established this BIPOC and queer business, getting folks connected to the outdoors, getting better at growing our food. And it's a social enterprise. So we're teaching people how to do it all, indoors and outdoors. I'm calling today from back of the yards here at Plant Chicago, where you see a lot of grow lights in the back and some seedlings. You see some green life in here. All of these plants have been started, some of them as early as February. And we're going to walk you through that too. We love education, which is what we do at all capacity, which is awesome. We love research, education, and teaching how to grow. Those are the three pillars of our business, and we want to keep growing and expanding that. We've done this work in Lake County, in Cook County, DuPage, Will County, and we've gone even up to Madison for 2 years, which has been awesome to get to know our neighbors there. Small business, big hearts, pequeña empresa, grandes corazones. With all of our gardens and our clients, just like Greentown Grows, we like to make sure that this food gets donated. We already know that we have plenty to harvest. Sometimes we can't even keep up with our harvests. So moving it forward where people can move it and use it and cook it and talk about it is incredibly important. So this is what our work is all about, which is awesome. Linda, do you want to talk and introduce Greentown Grows?
Sure. Greentown Grows is a nonprofit that has been dedicated toward creating green space and gardens since 2007 in the Waukegan area. I started with a plot in downtown Waukegan and expanded, started growing food there as well, and then expanded out to the Madeline Fuqua Garden, which is at the Callahan Park. If anyone knows where the BMX track is at on the north side of Waukegan, we are located at that site. We also have installed gardens at a number of area organizations, from the Waukegan Library to churches, and we work with a number of social service organizations to provide seedlings and seeds. So we really do we really have a long commitment to Waukegan and supplying food to address food access and food security. So, the big news for us for this year, we are going to be remodeling our greenhouse. We received a substantial grant, and we are very excited because now we will actually have a heated greenhouse with electricity and water, and we will be able to grow seedlings. So we're very excited for the future. And we're also very excited about how we partner with Contemporary Farmer Inc. Not just in these workshops, but David also and Case also are very much committed to volunteering with our organization and working with the citizens of the area. So we thank them very much for their expertise.
Thank you, Linda. And Linda and I both started volunteering at Greentown Girls during the same year, or is it around that same time?
Pretty close. I think I was like 2014, somewhere in there.
So I came in a year after.
Yeah.
Um, and when Contemporary Farmer got established in 2019, I said, yeah, I want to keep giving back to Waukegan, keep growing with Greentown Grows, especially having strong connections and growing up in Waukegan. So I love that park. I love the mission of organizations and any organization collaborating doing this work, we understand how important it is to keep supporting each other. So that's how that's come to be. And it's been cool to work together, establishing home gardens for Waukegan residents, expanding and bringing back the MFG garden, and incorporating some new things that are in these slides this year too. Case?
Yeah, so we just wanted to show sort of how these new beds, there used to be raised wooden beds in the Madeline Fuqua Garden, and last year we pivoted more towards having these like bigger raised metal or aluminum beds. So you can see the process, right? Where the Park District had laid out the weed killer fabric, and we assembled, I think, 20 beds in a matter of 2 or 3 hours, and then began filling them with soil and wood chips. There were quite a few of us there that day. And this was sort of the final result. All the beds were filled with soil, and we had wood chips lining the walkways. And we began planting, and you can sort of see the beginning of the planting in the middle of the slide, and then towards the bottom is a bit into the summer. And the next slide shows even more of the harvest. So it would actually be really cool if we could weigh how much we produce somehow. But there was one day, I'm pretty sure we harvested 30 pounds of greens for folks with the cool learning experience in the Boys and Girls Club. So yeah, and there's one more slide, I believe. Yep, just it was really great getting the kids out there and having them so excited. They're like, I want more broccoli, and just getting to know all the bugs and the plants that we were growing. And then in the bottom, you can see the trees. So with the Morton Arboretum, Greentown Grows planted 22 trees last October, I believe. They range from pecan and hazelnut trees to persimmon, elderberry, serviceberry, cherry, and plum. So yeah, I just wanted to exemplify and show everything that Greentown Grows has been able to do with that space.
I do really like these beds as well. Um, they are nice or sturdy. Sometimes they can get some excess heat, but there's so many different ways to grow in them, and they're quick and accessible. And you can play around with the different designs, especially incorporating some of the wood chips or leaf mulch or straw in here, depending on what aesthetics you want to go to. I do like this bed, and I've worked with it before. So it's nice. If you guys want, or whenever you're free, definitely come check out the garden. We have some volunteer days there. Um, and those will be in newsletters and on social media, the volunteer days and times to hang out. All right, so learning objectives. I hope we are ready. I want to make sure that we are able to understand what to do in the garden throughout the seasons. I was intentional of incorporating new things for us to think about. Sowing seeds indoors and outdoors is something that we'll discuss. We'll discuss transplanting and soil as well. One of the most crucial things for us in any garden is making sure that the soil is well taken care of, and we'll walk through that. Well, lucky for us, it's springtime, and I think if you have this accessible on a screen or on your phone, this is a good slide for you to take a screenshot of. March, April, and May, we kind of gave you a nice rundown of what to think about and what to do in the garden during spring. We want to make sure that as early as March, we're starting to design our garden and plan our garden. What do we want to grow? What new things do we want to incorporate? What did we like last year that we want to bring back this year? What didn't work so much? And then troubleshooting what we want to see. And if you see the second section right here, indoor, March is a time to start seedlings too, sometimes as early as February. But for most of these plants, we can start indoors to transplant later or direct seeding. For example, arugula, beets, bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage are starting indoors by seed. Ours are already acclimating in the rooftop of this garden here. And then we have some things for a succession like cilantro, collards, dill, and kale These are some examples of what we can start indoors. And don't forget that we can also start sowing seeds outdoors that are cold, hardy plants like carrots and cilantro, collards, kale, dill, beets, bok choy, lettuce. All of these things are things that we can start planting early in March. Even if it gets cold, a lot of these crops are built to resist that cold, hardy spring weather. So keep that in mind. Sometimes we're a little nervous of going out there because of the weather changing, but seeds are smart, seeds are hardy, and they can start growing. This year, one of our gardens in the city, we started planting as early, sowing seeds as early as February 27. And those seeds did survive. They came up. They're starting to stretch themselves. And they're looking really good. Though we planted 4 varieties: beets, carrots, cilantro, and collard greens, direct sown seed in the ground, and they are coming up. So kind of give us a peace of mind in another succession too. And then April is when we're starting to acclimate our plants. Whatever we grew, you're slowly starting to acclimate them into April now. And like I said, some of our seedlings are starting to acclimate upstairs. You want to make sure that you time it right. You don't want to go too early or too late. You want to gauge the weather. One of my biggest trick for you to successfully acclimate plants is always choosing a shady spot, whether it's under a tree or the shady part of your house. Somewhere that's completely away from direct sunlight is going to help you out a lot, giving you a peace of mind because the shade is giving it a protective barrier against direct light. And so I do that all the time. Anytime that I am acclimating my spring plants, we're already lacking foliage of our tree. So I go and find any spot around a building that I can hide my seedlings away from direct sunlight. So that's probably my biggest trick there. And then you're starting to plant some more seedlings like tomatoes and basil that like the summer heats, even tomatillos there. You're going to continue to acclimate your plants in May. But let's not forget about soil, because those are the first things that we talk about here. Prepare your soil by adding fresh compost to the garden. And then we say that again, start harvesting your home compost. If you haven't compost at home, highly suggest you do so. It's going to alleviate waste from landfills. It's going to give you nice, rich, diverse home compost that you'll add to your garden every year. All of our kitchen scraps will give a diversity of nutrients and amendment or nutrients to our soil that will amend our garden later. If you have access to fresh mushroom compost, I highly suggest doing that. You can honestly add fresh soil to your garden March, April, or May, but most of us are getting outdoors around April. And we've recently heard that we don't want to disrupt our dried debris, like our leaves and our twigs, to not disrupt our sleeping critters and insects too. So we have to make sure that throughout this entire process, we're being mindful of all of the bugs that are in the soil that are slowly waking up. So keep that in mind. But I do want to make sure that you add fresh compost to your garden so you have a nice, rich, full harvests in the seasons to come. If you have friends that are Spanish speaking, this is a good time to screenshot this Spanish slide for you guys. Same information here. And preparing our soil. This is something that we do for our gardens every 2 years. We like to add fresh compost to all of our sites every other year. But every year we do protect our soil with straw or leaf mulch to protect and build and amend our soil. That is a nice blanket protective barrier against all weather throughout the growing season, like the intense heat or the harsh frost that we get here in Chicago. And when we do so, you can see we've got beautiful flowers. You have corn growing in small spaces here. You have romaine and carrots starting to bloom. Nasturtium right here. When we feed our garden good soil, we are going to get good results too. Similar to our gut microbiome, when we eat healthy, we tend to be a little healthier. But some things sometimes are out of our control. So I want you to keep that in mind. This is something that contemporary farmer considers a best practice, and this is something a practice that we do with a lot of our gardens, whether in a small raised bed or in a large in-ground traditional home garden. We like to incorporate cover crops, and we live by it after seeing the incredible results that they bring to our garden. For instance, in one of our school gardens, we planted cover crops in one bed and left a bed completely bare without cover crops. And sometimes we have small beds, and so we think that we're lacking space. But when we plant and incorporate cover crops, especially down the middle of a bed, we can split the bed in two. And you can see my arrow here. If we split this bed in two, and this is how we incorporate our cover crops in a lot of our garden beds or gardens, then we have either side of the garden bed to plant a lot of whatever you'd like: radishes, or lettuce, nasturtium, tomatoes, peppers, collards, kale. We have more than enough space right there. And we live by it because in the bed that we interplanted tomatoes, where we planted the one long row of cover crop, we saw those tomatoes be twice as big and yield us a lot more fruits than the bed that did not have cover crop. We just decided to plant our tomatoes along with basil, cilantro, some dill, and other crops. Good companion plants. But we noticed that the bed with cover crops and companion plants yielded better fruits for our tomatoes, which was awesome. And these are some of the benefits of cover crops besides giving us a nice harvest. They're able to sequester carbon, they're able to retain moisture, and be a social protection, making sure that it's keeping the soil in place, but also keeping it nice and cool. Cover crops also do a lot more work than we think. A lot of their work is happening in the roots under the soil. They're making sure that they're working well with bacteria, breaking down nutrients into nitrate, so then our tomatoes and our peppers can absorb it and grow and use it. So we've seen this in good place. So this is a good practice. And I know that this year at the MFG garden with Greentown Grows, there are some beds that are going to get cover crops, and we are going to make observations and welcome you back to that garden to see what we are doing there. I know this is a new practice too. So let me know if you have any questions there. Does anybody have any questions? Now, I did see something in the chat. And if not, I can keep moving forward. This is a nice testimonial. I've said I live by it now. Take a moment to read this. This was completely unexpected. One of our clients, this is a client testimonial. We planted cover crops in one of their beds that was heavily compacted. And it took us 3 seasons to give beautiful carrots to this client, and we owe all of our praises to cover crops. It wasn't until we planted cover crops that we were able to break down the compacted soil, but then also bring back nutrition into the soil. And after the 3rd season and letting cover crops grow in this garden for 2 seasons, we were able to get nice full carrots, full beets, and see a whole ecosystem thrive in this garden bed where we intensely planted different cover crops. I think we planted mammoth clover, crimson clover, sweet clover, 3 for sure that I know, but I think a safe bet is always selecting a cover crop that has a mixture of cover crops in that seed packet. but we won't always know what cover crop to select unless we test our soil. It's good practice to collect our soil every quarter, every season, so then you can see the data and see what's happening in there. And I will tell you that if you do that every season, spring, summer, fall, and winter, you'll notice all the macronutrients moving, we having less and more of something. And the most obvious will be nitrogen. By the end of the season, we're going to see that all of our gardens are very low with nitrogen. So cover crops can keep helping us put nitrogen back into the soil. And I hope you enjoyed and had a moment to read that testimonial there. And these are some pictures.
David,
Yes.
can I just interrupt? I was thinking that one of the things that we can provide send an email out to everyone with links to suggested cover crop seed varieties.
Thank you. So you wait that, expect for that. And here's some pictures here too. How do cover crops look in your garden throughout the season? As early as April, they're going to look like dry debris, still giving our insects, our pollinators a nice home to live. And those roots still doing their work and slowly waking up as they went dormant during the winter, especially the clover. As you can see, a lot of that clover came back in May. So these are, looks like 2 rows of clover that went dormant last year. And then slowly we trimmed it back and tilled it in August. So you can kind of see how that's going to look like in your garden. And if you look at summertime, this is a good time for you to take a screenshot if you want to take these notes here. Earlier in the presentation, I kept mentioning succession. Succession is something that is always going to give us a full garden and a full fridge and a full house of neighbors asking us for maybe more cucumbers or more kale or more beans. Sometimes we're not going to be able to keep up with it, which is when that slide from earlier comes back. Big, small business, big hearts, always making sure that we're sharing the abundance that our garden can give us. So June is time for us to start sowing more beans, more basil, more beets, more carrots, anything that you want more of. Some seeds are very hardy and will continue to give us tons. So keep that in mind. And do that throughout the entire growing season too. If you look at July, we talk more about successions right here. And then in July, believe it or not, we're already starting to prepare for fall. It all happens so fast. We're starting more seedlings, like more broccoli and cabbage and collards and kale for a fall garden, which is giving us a nice season extension. You can sometimes direct sow this seed in the garden, or you can pick a tray of your choice and start sowing those seeds indoors or outdoors to start your fall garden. Some things like cauliflower and cabbage are very slow to grow. So those would be 2 crops that I would say start early in July so you can have a nice full garden. And the stores don't always provide us with early spring seedlings or fall seedlings. So this is a good reminder for us to be ahead of the game and start some of our seedlings there. And then we already know that August, the garden is full. We have tons of tomatoes. We have cucumbers, sometimes in September too. We have even more in September. So during August and July, you're starting to take care of the garden. You want to trim back whatever you want to trim back. You want to save some seeds that may come from your native plants or your annual vegetables. You're thinking of next year, taking notes, thinking of your favorite colors, making observations of what sort of insects visited your garden, what sort of pests or diseases you had. So then you can make sure that you can assess your soil for the next year so it can be better. Maybe you're thinking of different trellises. You're thinking of different designs of different things to do. So you're monitoring, you are canning, you're sharing, you're seed saving. There's tons to do in August, and that's going to trickle into September as well. Here's a good time to take a screenshot of this. For next year, I mean, for Spanish speaking friends, if you have some. Oh, and of course, this is how summer in the garden looks like. We have beautiful colors. Look at this beautiful harvest right here. We have some little broccolini. We have tons of tomatoes. I see some purple tomatillos, a ginormous zucchini. We see peppers in here, beautiful colors. So keeping that in mind, this is what we are going for. This is why we incorporate cover crops. This is why we add fresh compost to our garden. This is why we seed save, so that we can have this beautiful abundance, and we want more of it too. Case, did you harvest this tomato variety here in this first picture?
All of these photos are from the Madeline Fuqua garden from last
Nice.
summer.
They look
Yeah.
gorgeous. Autumn is going to be here before we know it. Otoño in Spanish. Here's Spanish. Here's the English. Take a moment to take a screenshot here if you'd like. In September, I do like to direct sow beets and carrots. And I said, I made the suggestion earlier of doing that in June or July. We're thinking of successions here. I like to do that in September because we still have enough sun for these plants, for these crops to grow. And if we harvest them for Thanksgiving in November or even in December, as climate change is making the Midwest warmer, these beets and these carrots are going to be a lot sweeter because of the extra production of sugar to keep them warm as the temperatures are getting cooler too. September, things are going to seed. Maybe you forgot some things out in your garden, so this is a perfect time to seed save. Anytime we can seed save, we are nurturing and gathering the strong genes that crop learned from our garden during that year too. So when we save that seed, it's going to come back stronger and better the following years too. So keep that in mind. And we're adding all of our garden waste to our compost pile. Making our soil and our garden beds richer because we're incorporating all that local biology back into our compost pile that will circle back into our garden beds to our roots, and then allowing us to enjoy it later in the garden season too. I know that some folks might harvest worms. This is a perfect time. Might have a worm bin where we can harvest some worm castings. This is a perfect time to start harvesting some of these worm castings and putting it back into our garden so we can have nice, rich soil next year, but even in the fall too, as we know we are starting to lack nitrogen in our garden there. So always amending, always taking care of the soil with leaf mulch, with compost, worm castings. And during this time, you're starting to either plant your fall crops, or you're starting to acclimate them too, depending on how you start it. So we are starting to plant or acclimate some of our fall seedlings here. But that should be more towards August, so we can plant it in September. And let's see, when it comes to October, sometimes October is perfect time to bring back radishes that we did in March and in April and even into May. Dill and cilantro love the chilly weather. They can't tolerate the heat, although you can still plant them. We're bringing back these cool weather crops. And we're making our lists of what to plant next year or this year. Maybe you want to cut back the garden and slow it down by this time. You don't have to ramp it up, but here's a reminder that we can have a season extension. And like I said, Lake County and the Midwest is starting to get warmer climate, which is good and bad. Bad for many reasons, good, but good for future harvests to come. And you're wrapping up your basil that is not happy, that's lacking sun. Same with some of your flowers are starting to come back. You can always harvest those flowers and let them dry. You can bring them back indoors. You can harvest some of those seeds. You can use those petals for different things. So all really cool things to do with our flowers late season. When it comes to November, things are starting to slow down. Things are starting to decay. Maybe we experienced a frost already. Maybe we didn't. Maybe some things are still looking really good. You want to do the last hurrah of your tomatoes, which we know has been the case for a few seasons now. So keep that in mind too. But slowly we're starting to wrap things up. Maybe you are deciding to do cover crops in the fall instead of the spring. This is a time to bring back those cover crops in there. Your lettuce, your radishes, your kale should be a-okay during November. And then hopefully, you're not too tired, but maybe you are tired and you don't want to do any more gardening. Or you want to scale back and slow down and do something different. Don't forget that we can grow indoors year round here in the Midwest or anywhere, truly. We can grow microgreens indoors with a nice grow lights. You can grow passive hydroponic lettuce with a mason jar using Happy Leaf LED lights that Greentown grows and Contemporary Farmer Inc. loves. You can grow head lettuce indoors under a grow light. And with the right grow light, like Happy Leaf LED, we can have beautiful flowers indoors too for a salad. Something, because I think sometimes we forget about that we can bring the garden indoors and have a nice season extension, which is going to be a completely different experience. Not so much because we already had an intense growing season, but bringing a grow light indoors can give us a different experience when it comes to growing our food. Take a moment to take this screenshot for Spanish speakers if you'd like. And for a lot of us, we might know that flowers are our friends. In the spring or in the summer, or even as you are planning for the following season, or even early season now, don't forget about flowers. Incorporate them well in your garden, whether it's in the corner of your beds, around the perimeter, maybe in the middle or in between. Incorporating flowers throughout your garden is going to increase your yields of your crops. It's going to increase the ecosystem in the ground or above the ground by welcoming our pollinators season after season. So they are our friends. We want to make sure that we have large flowers like our sunflowers, medium flowers like our marigolds, or smaller flowers like our alyssum, to welcome all beneficial insects or all sorts of pollinators in our garden to make sure that we have a lively and thriving ecosystem all around our garden too. So I want to make sure that you remember that. And here's where I said, welcome to growing indoors. If you want to, you can take a moment to take a screenshot now. If you look at January and February, we're talking all about growing indoors. Some of us forgot about the practice of sprouting indoors. This is the time for us to sprout, to fine tune that practice, to remember how to do it, to look at the different seeds that you can sprout indoors. Highly nutritious. Greentown Grows have led lessons around sprouting and microgreens and growing under grow lights here, all which Contemporary Farmer Inc. also has done. And we love it. We want to make sure that people are well fed, well involved in local food, and starting indoors or at our home, at our schools, at our workplaces even. We can see all that thrive and grow. So I want to put that reminder there. Now I want to go back to December, where I'm saying, hey, don't forget to protect your soil with leaf mulch or straw. Even if we gather some of the leaves around our yard, we can collect those, run the the lawnmower over them. Or if you have like a wood chipper, break those leaves down and integrate them into your garden, giving it a nice protective barrier for the winter, and richness for our soil later too. So keep that in mind. And I love doing all this. I sprout lentils in my apartment, in my urban Chicago garden, home now. And this is something that I do throughout the growing season, throughout the year. Anytime that I remember, I go ahead and I make my sprouts, or I sprout my seeds. A good and accessible website is True Leaf Market. We can find sprouting seeds there. And there are so many different videos on YouTube or on TikTok or on social media where we can find on sprouting. But I want to give you the reminder of what to do during the winter, to get some extra nutrition, to get some extra flavor, sometimes which we lack during the seasons too. And don't forget to start gathering, your organic potting soil, your organic seeds, your containers, your grow lights, so you can start creating your indoor lab here. And then you can invite your friends over too. Have a nice party. Enjoy that fresh cilantro taste. Enjoy that fresh lentil taste. Enjoy the richness of the arugula or the microgreen broccoli. All which is going to be incomparable than homegrown. Talked about microgreens. Look at this beautiful color too. This is purple basil right here. This is how it can look like if you decide to grow indoors, believe it or not, in a soil medium or in a hemp mat, or maybe directly in light, like the passive hydroponic system. Happy Leaf LED has some cool instructional videos on how to grow indoors. If you guys want to check that out, they are good friends of us. And this is why we grow microgreens, because they hold a lot of nutrition, and that goes for sprouts as well. Linda, I know that you have led different lessons and workshops on sprouts and microgreens. Anything you would like to mention there?
Yeah, actually, I've got, if you want to stop sharing, I can actually show some pictures of the Happy Leaf lights that I have. Hold on a second here. Let me get rid of my background. And there we go. All right. Thank you for being patient. Okay, well, Happy Leaf actually sells, they have a home version and a pro version or a commercial version. The lights are pretty much the same, more or less. It's just get more power at the pro level versus the home level. Once again, this is something that we can provide for you in the email. So I'm just going to show you here. This is the Procyon 17-inch light. You can see it's really small, fits in small places, great. There's some power supply that comes off of this, and they provide you mounting hardware so you can hang it. And it's very cute, very interesting. I don't have it on here. All of their lights come with these type of adjustable straps, so you can adjust the height, which is really, really wonderful. A very easy thing to do, very quick. So anyways, they also have a 17-inch light, and then they also have, and I have to kind of back up here, they have a 33-inch light, which I have near me. I have a grow rack growing with some of these lights. They do not take much power. When they have been operating for hours, if you're concerned about heat, a small child, if they were to grab it, will not burn their hands. These operate very cool. They are warm, but they are not hot and will not burn your hands or any small children's hands. Just to give you some idea of what you can grow, I have here a head of lettuce that I grew in a mason jar, and these instructional videos are on the Happy Leaf website. This is really wonderful lettuce. I can't wait to eat it. And to add to my salad, I have some pak choi. Hopefully you like the look of that. And basil also will grow in this hydroponic method, and this is my basil plant that's going right now. and it smells wonderful. All right, well, I will, that's all I have. And David, why don't you take control again?
Thank you, Linda. I'm glad that you had those visuals and we're able to show the bok choy and lettuce, because that's exactly how it looks like. It was lettuce, am I right?
Yes, it was lettuce, bok choy, and basil.
Cool. These are lights in a different way that we bring it to schools as well. And we see it work. And when students see that in live action, they are able to see real live food grown indoors in such an interesting way. In a mason jar like this, where we can also brew compost tea, and this is the light that Linda was showing us. We absolutely love it. The texture is great. Of the plants, the light is great. And it will help us start seedlings quite quicker than maybe other lights, which I have seen for sure. So keep that in mind. I know Linda with Greentown Grows will send out extra information about this. And we offer these products too on Contemporary Farmer Inc.'s website, contemporaryfarmerinc.com. So keep that in mind. We love this. I won't go much in depth about compost tea, but I want to let you know that it's a biologically active amendment. Farmers and growers out west use a lot of it. Some folks in the Midwest use it. So we all have different methods of amending our soil, and compost tea is one of Contemporary Farmers' best practice. We brew this throughout the season. We apply it at different times for each garden or garden bed. It all depends on your soil after you test it, or while you make observations on what's happening in your garden. It's relatively easy to use. You just have to make sure that you're buying nice, rich soil. Contemporary Farmer Inc. connected with a farmer in Wisconsin last year who is our supplier of worm castings and biochar. Worm castings, which is what we use with compost tea. It can be intensive where you have to get extra materials like a air bubbler or an air stone, or as simple as just letting it seep in water. And it could be as simple as that, just to create a nice liquid, biologically active fertilizer there. As you can see, it's an alternative to synthetic fertilizers. A good practice there. And we are slowly wrapping up here. We might have some questions. We are here to answer that. We have experts on this call. But this is how, if you're interested and if you need some support, Contemporary Farmer can help. We operate here in Chicago, where we are calling in live for this workshop today. And we offer seedlings. We're able to deliver fresh soil, apply compost tea, help you clean up your garden, plant it, help you coach with it, which is how we work with Greentown Grows. Coaching sessions, providing assistance, getting out involved in the community, which is exactly what we want to do. Here is this slide in Spanish if you're interested.
We can't see the slide that you're on, David.
That is not good. I don't know why. Resume share. Did you see the other ones?
No, it was kind of frozen on the present. The last thing we saw was the microgreen slide.
Can you see my slides now?
Not really. Maybe try again.
We will do this again. How about now?
Yes, yeah, it says microgreen basics.
Here's the microgreen basics, y'all, where we left off. Thank you, Case. These are a little bit about the nutrition that we saw earlier. You can take a screenshot of this if you'd like. this is the slide that I was talking about. Compost tea and the grow lights here. This is Contemporary Farmer Inc.'s services, seedling, soil. This is where we're calling in from. We are in Chicago right now. This is our Spanish flyer if you're interested. And here are two QR codes for you guys. One for Greentown Grows, one for Contemporary Farmer Inc. that Linda will send out after. And Sandy, you are in this picture and I know you're on the call. What is happening here? Do you want to tell us? Sandy is away. But
No,
Sandy,
I'm here.
hi, Sandy.
Hi. That's a family garden in Waukegan, and an organization came to help us, and then we've got some of our own team there. And the girl in the very front with the blue on, she has her own shovel. She was planting, she was watering, and to this day, she goes out every day. Last year she went out every day to check to see what they could pick. And the daycare that she goes to is next door, and she invites the entire daycare to come over and pick also.
Which is what we want when we are able to teach the youth. We'll see, right? The community naturally develops and grows, and then they will pull us to help harvest and do garden work, which is good, keeping everybody involved.
And mom and dad are very involved also.
Yeah, that's good. And this is one of Sandy's sites that she oversees, alongside the quick story that she shared about the daycare too. What are some of the favorite things that you have learned in these two gardens, Sandy?
Well, the daycare children, they range from, I would say, 2-year-olds, and during the summer, all the way to probably third, fourth graders. And the younger ones want to show the older children how to weed and what not to pick out of the garden and what isn't fresh yet. So it's nice, the interaction for the young ones are teaching those that are a little bit older and haven't had the opportunity to learn. So it's exciting. We're planting potatoes at the daycare this Thursday.
Oh, nice. Any advice for planting potatoes?
There's so many different ways of doing it. Greentown at the Madeline Fuqua Garden digs trenches. For my children and the families that I go to, we dig holes and we bury them. And then as they're coming up, then we plant more dirt around the plants as they come up. So, there's different methods of doing it.
Thank you, Sandy. Now it's the time to plant potatoes, y'all. This workshop is happening April 22nd. So keep that in mind. Linda, could you remind us, are we bringing this program back this year? And if not, or if so, how can people get involved? Or could you tell us more about this program that Greentown Grows offers?
So the board of directors decided not to put a pause on the program for now. We're not accepting any new applicants this year, but we will be reviewing how we're going to run this program. Looks like we're going to be making some changes to it. We hope to have it going again next year.
And tell us more about the programs for those that may not know what this is about.
Well, the program, it's called the Home Garden Program, where we take referrals from a variety of social service organizations. We select a few homeowners each year that have suitable site, that also are enthusiastic about growing. And then they are paired up with one of our garden mentors. We have two people that are our garden mentors at this time, and we pair them up. We come in with the raised bed, the soil. We have kind of you know, in the olden days you used to have a barn raising party. Well, we have a garden raising party. So we build the wooden box. We shovel everything off the truck into the bed. We come in with seeds and seedlings. And in this particular photo, we have members from Joy Lutheran Church on a day of service in the community. And they're helping alongside with the family. So we just have a big old time together, and about an hour and a half later, we have a garden, it's planted, and the first lesson has happened, and away we go. And we follow these people for 3 years to help them learn through the cycles of the seasons. Every year is a little bit different, so we feel that by doing it for 3 years, they, by at the end of 3 years, have a fairly good idea how to grow a garden. So, but like I said, right now, our garden mentors are tapped out with the number of we have around 10 that are with us right now, and that's probably maxed out our 2 volunteers. And so, just going to put a pause for this year, and we'll reconsider next year.
And this is a good opportunity for different organizations to get involved, to get donation or potential sponsorship too. It's an awesome program. Well, alongside with anything else that Greentown Grows does, like the garden that is coming up soon. We've had 2 volunteer days there, and yeah, different ways to get involved and help out. That concludes the last slide and our presentation. If anybody has any questions, let us know. We have experts on this call. Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you
I have a
being here.
question.
Yes.
I have never done cover crops before, and I think it's amazing. The cover crops you leave growing then all summer?
Yes. So for example, if you look at this middle picture right here, these cover crops, this looks like mammoth clover, or sweet clover, I don't remember. Definitely a type of clover. This was planted the year before, and it went dormant, it perked back up. What we did in this bed is trim it back and planted corn. Actually, no, we ended up pulling it completely because you see here August. I'm confusing it with a different bed. We ended up taking that back and then planting. No, I'm completely wrong. I want to say planting corn. Eventually, we did use this bed after planting cover crops and planted corn, and that corn did do well.
Okay, now here's my next question. I'm sorry I'm confused about it.
That's okay.
So the roots of the cover crop, do those
Yes.
get reworked into the soil?
We don't. You could till it. Yes. Contemporary Farmer Inc. Does not practices a no-till method. So if this was your bed and we were going to work this cover crop to give us the best benefit, we would just completely trim it back. That will kill the plants, letting the root just die in the soil, giving us good nutrition that way, and then planting over it.
I understand now.
And then that extra green debris can be used to protect the soil as a living, as green manure, or during the growing season, we lack carbon. We can use it for extra carbon in our compost pile.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I understand now. So I will be doing a cover crop at my house.
Cool. Yeah, we're excited. Yeah, let us know how that goes.
I'll start it at my house and see how it works, and then I'll bring seeds to my families.
And let me tell you, if we were to do something, thank you, Sandy. If we were to do something different here, the way that I've incorporated cover crops and annual veggies is by removing, just making space for other plants. There's
Yes.
different ways that I would incorporate tomatoes or peppers or cucumbers here. If you can see down the middle, it's kind of
Yeah.
bare there. That's intentional. So for us to plant later. So would move this cover crop away, making space for tomatoes or peppers or cucumbers and planting it in between, or completely removing different quarter sections here and then planting tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers or beans in here, interplanted with the cover crop so they can still benefit from each other. And that is my favorite method because I see the tomatoes and cucumbers and beans be twice as bigger as those plants growing without cover crops in that same bed.
And they help keep the moisture in.
It does, which is less watering for us.
Yes, which is wonderful. All right, I'm ready to try that. My grandson said he wanted to put clover in along with the carrots for the
Let's do it.
rabbits.
We like that. We fully
For
support.
the rabbits.
That's good.
Yeah, our clover my husband put in the backyard for the bees.
Awesome.
So I've got it in the backyard.
Nice. No, we need more of it, and they're great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, of course. Any other questions, y'all?
I have one still on the cover crops because this is new for me as well. And I'm like really stoked to try this year. How do you keep it from becoming, because I'm assuming they grow pretty quickly. How do you keep them from becoming weedy or overtaking the garden?
If you look, see, these ones actually did grow up to be about 2 feet tall. We have a video of me standing next to them, and they were very, very tall. So all we do is trim those back, trim it back. And like I said, you can let that dry for carbon during the summer where we lack carbon for our compost piles. You could also use that as green mulch to protect your soil or amend your soil in different ways. You can do that with some of your nitrogen suckers, like your tomatoes. Add it at the base of the tomatoes so it can just break down, protect the soil, and get a boost of nutrients there. It's not going to be completely accessible right away, but it will slowly work its way into the soil. So my quick answer for you is you can trim it back. Sometimes each a plant might die back, which is fine because that root and that cover crop did its work. Some of it might re-sprout, kind of just like pruning. So you can think of it as like pruning it back.
Okay. And then you said the other is that they actually work to loosen soil. So normally what I do is I take a garden fork, and loosen my soil in the spring. But this actually will essentially do the same thing.
I really like what the results that they gave us, which is why we adapted it as one of our best practices. And now all of our gardens get cover crops because we see the benefit, and it's completely different than ginormous fields. We understand, but some of us are working with a less amount of grow space. So there are so many benefits that cover crops offer. So this is a way that Contemporary Farmer Inc. brought them to people's attention so then we can work with them in small spaces too. And so far the results have been great. And we've been able to plant as much as we want and still integrate this plant to get the benefits that it gives our soil and our ecosystem too. Some of these plants, some of these cover crops will flower, bringing in more pollinators and giving us the opportunity to save some seeds as well. And sometimes I've been told that folks don't want to integrate cover crops because they might get weedy. But luckily, in a small space, we are able to manage weeds. It might get weedy when it goes to seed. So if you don't want that to happen in your garden, for sure disrupt the plant before it starts flowering. In our case, we have always allowed our cover crops to flower to bring in more pollinators, and it has not been a problem for us yet. And we have saved some seeds that we have resown the following growing seasons, and so far, so good.
I just got a question that came in that, can you talk a little bit about companion gardening?
Yeah, so if you look at this picture right here, you see different colors. You see corn, you see yellow marigold, you see orange marigolds, you see some basil, the obvious purple basil here. You see some yellow pink zinnias, and see some beans and a trellis back here. This is a good example of companion planting. We want to make sure that we integrate different plants that can benefit each other. Typically when we teach this, we say if it grows well, if it goes well on a dish like basil and tomato, most likely it's going to pair well in the garden too, like tomatoes and basil. Marigolds are a standard companion plant to deter pests. Basil, we know, also helps deter pests, specifically aphids. One companion relationship that I live by is dill and cilantro next to any brassica. Broccoli, collards, kale, Brussels sprouts always are paired with dill or cilantro in the springtime, in the summer, in the fall, because in the city of Chicago, where I grow the most at, we get a lot of aphids, and I have seen this relationship deter aphids away. And I have tested it out by removing dill and cilantro, and I come back the next week, a couple days, or in 2 weeks, and then I see that plant, that brassica, got heavily infested with aphids because I removed the dill and cilantro. So that is one rule that I do live by in the city. But incorporating a lot of flowers. The Old Farmer's Almanac, almanac.com, has an incredible article and a nice cheat sheet on companion plants.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Okay. Do you build worm boxes in any of your gardens?
We have not done that, no.
Okay, I'm thinking about doing that too. So
yeah, do it and let us know. You could also bring it practice with some of your clients, or if you want to use a raised bed at the garden, you definitely can. Then you can get some extra support from the community on how to maintain it, or how to make observations or troubleshoot.
well, first I have to find one that's easy enough for me to do.
Okay. Yeah, let us know how we can help.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Please unmute and feel free to ask them. Now's the time.
I just want to say thank you, Linda, and thank you, David, very much.
Of course. Thank you, guys. I hope you were able to learn something new. Enjoy our slides. It's the right time to start your spring garden, soon your summer garden. And even if you start a late garden, sometimes later gardens that are started in July do better than some of the tomatoes or gardens that we plant in May. And if you want to wait a little later, you can always start a fall garden too. There are so many different ways to get involved, and there's always time to start a garden. Everything that you are behind, that you are late, you're gonna be a-okay. That's it for us, y'all. Linda, do you wanna close us out?
Yeah, so I'm going to stop recording.